Hi, and welcome to the Feel Good Always podcast. I'm Becky Bradley, and this is real stories of love, connection, and remembering who we are. I'm here with Nadia. Hi, how are you today? So glad you're here.
I am so excited to be here. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, so Nadia and I met after my daughter Kira died. So if you're new here, my daughter Kira Bradley was in a fatal UTV accident at 15 years old. And this Feel Good Always podcast is all about, it's really about her bringing this energy through to me. I've been through a tremendous amount of grief, obviously, with my daughter dying, but it opened me up to this like really massive level of connection to her and everything and everyone. And I've really just been led moment to moment through a lot of surrender to do this podcast and bring people on here to share their own stories of awakening. We talk about moving into higher levels of consciousness. We talk about spiritual awakening. We talk about how do we do this? How do we expand as humans here on earth and go through all of this? And I love sharing the stories because I believe that we help other people see the truth of what is happening for them. And I always remind everyone to go within and to listen to yourselves. Today, you'll hear really amazing stories from Nadia about her own experience of awakening, of this connection to something much greater. And you'll hear mine, but always listen to yourself, right? We are not gurus. We're just people sharing our experience so that people can find themselves in our experience. You're really just looking for your own, what rings true for you. So Nadia, we met after Kira died in it's living with grief. It was a grief group put on by Emily Graham. She's amazing. She's been on this podcast, and you were part of that group because your son had also transitioned, and I think it had been a couple years when I got there. And wow, your
Yeah.
story, there was something about you.
Yeah.
Like,
So we met through Emily's group, and it was so funny because Emily had mentioned in group, she said, "Oh, I have someone new coming, but I think you were like 3 months in." And I
yeah,
was like, "I can't do this." Like, I thought, I cannot do this. But she's like, "No, she's really connected though." And then when I met you, I was shocked at how you already knew. I was like, she gets it because you were already connecting to Kira at that point.
yeah.
And I needed to know you, which is strange. I needed to know you because I needed to have that validation from someone who had done so much healing already because I connected to other people, and Emily was connecting to Cameron, and I'm so grateful to Emily, but I needed to meet you.
Yeah, I needed to meet you too because we're all part of each other's journeys. And I really early on, 3 months, I mean, if you're listening, 3 months, if your child dies, you can barely breathe at 3 months, let alone 6 months. So I know that. And it's really hard to sit with somebody, especially when you've experienced the pain of this, to sit with somebody brand new because it brings you right back. So I could
Yeah.
understand that feeling. I was really being led by Kira, by my life, just showing me where to go next. And I needed to actually see other people that were literally, you guys were like talking about taking your cat to the vet. I remember that like stuck out to me. And I was like, okay, they're talking about like, I couldn't even think about anything. I couldn't answer an email. So in the beginning for me, it was really just, okay, these people are actually able to have one thought that doesn't have to do with the agony that I was living in full time. And you gave me hope just in that simple thing of being able to talk about something else because my mind at the time couldn't think about anything else, but I still just kept going. And yes, I was very connected immediately, but not like I am today, at least the feeling inside, maybe on the outside, because you were probably seeing a lot of like this channeled energy, right? We were supposed to meet because we always were. And you're part of that story of there was lots of things that you started to share that I was like, yes, that's kind of what I'm experiencing. And you seem to be living in more peace than definitely more peace than I was. And you had kind of what I wanted in the sense of you were connecting and you had a lot of synchronicities. And I was experiencing a wild amount of signs and I hadn't found very many people that had, and you were one of those first people for me. So I would love for you to share your story of I hate calling it a story, this is your life, and but what happened with your son and before and when it happened and like kind of your awakening through it, because you sit in a lot of I know you've had a lot of growth and a lot of peace, and it's
Mhm.
miraculous, right?
Yeah. Well, I always like my mother lost her child.
Your mother lost her child, so your sibling, your sister.
Yeah, so my sister, but I mean, my sister, we don't share the same dad. Because actually she lost her husband as well. So my mother had a
Oh.
really hard life. But my mother is one of the happiest people you'll ever meet. You would never know. So I already knew that it was possible to be happy. But I always saw my mother as someone different, like, oh, she's just different, you know? So, like you, I needed to know that there were other people out there. I needed to find that hope that it wasn't just my mother, that she's not someone special, that other people can be this happy. But at the same time, I already had a belief of the afterlife. I already knew. I heard a voice when I was 11. The voice told me I was going to get into a car accident. And I did. I got into a car accident. And I know that the voice wasn't telling me this to change my path. It was only so that I could validate that the voice is real today because the accident did happen. Had I not gotten into the car, I could never share that story today. So I always had
Ooh.
these moments of validation throughout my life. Yeah, I mean, all these things were just coming to me, right? They were just, I just was like, what do I need next? And bang, it would happen. So Brian, he began to have stomach pains and go to the hospital quite regularly. And of course, they were just telling him that it was anxiety. It was just during COVID. But I was getting messages and signs and synchronicities, and actually they were as well. Because after they passed or transitioned into spirit, we went through their stuff and we found written notes. I feel like I'm dying, and just like different things. He even created a song, and the song is so beautiful. And it's about sliding through the rainbow. And honestly, the song is so beautiful that it brought me so much peace afterward. I believe like 10 days before they transitioned into spirit, we were going for a car ride and I heard that voice again, the one that I heard when I was 11. And the voice told me because I asked them if they wanted to go for a car ride. They said yes. And then I looked at the time and I said, well, it's almost curfew. It was during COVID. We had a curfew. We had to be in by 8 o'clock. It was 7:30. So I said, oh, Bri, it's actually getting late. We should just go home. So I began to drive down the street and I heard the voice again, the all-knowing voice, calm. And it said to me, go for your car ride. You're not getting another chance. And I understood the voice and I knew the voice. And I said, hey, Bri, let's go for our car ride. And Brian transitioned 10 days later. But I do want to say 3 days before they did move on into spirit, they were standing by their doorway and they were just surrounded by this beautiful white aura. And I remember looking at them and I couldn't speak. I literally could not speak because they were so beautiful. And I remember my husband talking to them and I wanted to say, oh my God, Bri, you're so beautiful. And I thought it, but the words couldn't even come out of my mouth. That's how they took my breath away. And they transitioned 3 days later.
So you shared this story with me. I remember you sharing it, and it really helped me because that voice when you were younger that told you that about the car accident, and then you get in the car. So you weren't meant to change it. You were meant to hear it so that you could trust the voice, which is really what's happened to me over and over. And specifically for me, I also knew something was going to happen to Kira, which scared me. I mean, I got therapy over it. But after she died, I was like, I wasn't being shown that because I had a very deep knowing this was always going to happen. I never had regret. I mean, of course, I wish it didn't happen, but I didn't have regret. Or if I would have done this, it would have been different because I knew it was coming and it was a breadcrumb for the work I'm doing today for what I know is true, which is that I could trust the voice, that it's beyond me, that I am receiving help, which is, yeah, I mean, Emily shares the same voice that she had about Cameron. And I want to say, I haven't said this in a long time, but I want to say, because I'm hearing a voice that says to remind people that are listening, if you have a child and you have a fear that something is going to happen to your child and you're like, I have that voice. No, I remind you to stay present because there is a difference between fear and the voice. And we're learning. That's what a lot of people are listening. You're learning to listen. But anytime the voice tells me to be afraid of something or I feel immense fear, it's like I remind myself to come back to the present moments because many moms do have this fear. It was different. It was very different. It was also a feeling. And so, I was grateful to hear that you had this too. It was like this piece of other people have had that. And then the description that you're sharing about him, in this aura essentially around him. And what you're describing is this beautiful feeling that you had, and also the 10 days before in the car accident. And I know that his number that he sends is 10 all the time. That's
Mhm.
significant. These numbers. We
Yeah.
started this call. I was late, 10 minutes late at 10. And then we realized it was 10:10 a.m. my time. So all of
Yeah.
it, I mean, people could look at those things as coincidence. It's all like everything
Yeah.
is built on these things. And so as tragic as it is, as we open up to this massive awakening, you start to see all these breadcrumbs like that he knew. Maybe he didn't know, but his soul was leaving you signs afterwards, right?
As you were saying, like the fear, there is a big difference, right? If you can validate this, there's such a difference between hearing the voice than there is
Hmm.
from an anxious thought. An anxious thought is it's your body's gonna react to that, but the voice brings a calm to you. It's so different.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can
I think
validate that.
I think I'm very clear on it now, and I don't live at all in fear. I just live in knowing, and I am
Yeah.
surrendered to what that looks like. I share on here a lot. My daughter was in the hospital after Kira died, my other daughter. I had a good sense that everything was going to be okay, even though as the medical personnel was, kind of like there was an emergency and around me, but I'm still human. So, but I could stay calm in the midst of a lot, which is, that part is amazing. But really surrendering to whatever is going to happen because it's very clear to me that, I knew that fear didn't help anything, but now I embody the truth that I don't need to be in fear and that we're being helped so much by being fed this beautiful, calm energy. It's like I always think of myself like this picture of myself meditating in the middle of the fire because it is not easy. I mean, my husband and I were laying in bed last night and he's having a rough time. And kind of am too, just like confused. I get confused because this awakening sitting alongside being human and being like, what am I doing here? And I know this is kind of a dream. We're still human and this is our lives. We can still feel good. It's like this is how we feel in this moment, right? I'm sure you relate to that part of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There were so many ups and downs through this journey of
Yeah.
awakening. Yeah.
Yeah. And that it continues as we
Yeah.
spiral into the awakening. So share your awakening because I know that it really transformed you. You had this belief in the afterlife, but all of the other things, you shaved your head.
So I knew that I wasn't ever going to be the person that I once was. I knew that it was impossible to be that person. And I kind of understood at that moment that why are you fearing things? Why are you not living your life? I mean, if my child can pass away from apparently like natural causes, my child, Brian was really quiet. Okay. Brian did not drink. Brian did not smoke. Brian was like, I mean, if you thought of anyone just suddenly passing away, it was like what? It was shocking, really. So if that can happen, then why am I not doing the things that I want to do? It didn't make sense to me anymore. And so Brian, he came out actually close to his passing away as Riley on social media, which is something that he did not share with us. We did not know about this. We found out about it after because he was still kind of like shedding like the fear of coming out as Riley. And so he or they, I don't know which one to use, but they guided me into becoming who I really am and not having the fear that I had all these years of like masking myself. Like I always had this belief of the afterlife. And I always got these signs and synchronicities, but I like became an alcoholic just to kind of like shut it off. I did all these things to mask myself and there was like no more mask. And so I shaved my head. Like that's it. This is me, authentic me. I'm not hiding behind anything anymore. And that's what it was.
I have so many chills right now listening to you because yeah, in this kind of, your child leaves and it's like if I don't fully live for every single moment and be exactly who I am, it's like that offering, that availability to be who we are, to listen to ourselves. Some people might call me woo woo. I mean, I would probably think a lot of the things I talk about, I just shocked that what comes out of my mouth, and not necessarily on the podcast, but it goes way beyond that. I'm talking about extraterrestrials and stuff I just was not talking about before, as I feel more uncomfortable because it's like maybe mainstream is not ready or the people I'm around are not ready. And yeah, there was nothing that could hold me back from the truth because Kira was the one leading me. Now, a lot of people could say, that's God, or you have to have God. No, it had to be Kira for me. It could not have been God. So you could call it whatever you want. We're working with God, and that's what she says all the time. I team up with God. But for me, Becky Bradley, who was atheist 13 years ago, it wasn't going to be God that led me. But yes, we're all parts of God, and she was used. And so that mother's love that we have is bigger than anything. I think anyone can understand that. It's like that identity, that ego, that shame over oversharing, the vulnerability. And as somebody with a child that has died, my experience was a lot of people looking at me like, your life is over, you're screwed. You
Mhm.
look it up on the internet. What does it say? It's the worst possible thing that could happen to a human. I mean, literally, I don't know if I was creating this, but like everything I read, it was like I was desperately searching for some relief from this pain. I mean, my own mind was like, you're screwed. My mind was saying it, so that was reflecting back at me. And this isn't just about I'm moving on without Kira, because that was never going to happen. And so I got exponentially opened up, and then found people like you. For you, I know you quit drinking, you shaved your head, you took a lot of time off work, which I think is so important. I mean, people wanted me back at work, not necessarily because I needed to work, but because, um, please get back to normal.
Yeah, yeah.
Please get back to normal.
Distraction. Yeah,
Yeah.
distraction. You need to distract yourself. Whereas I did the opposite. I isolated myself.
Yeah.
I did the opposite. I completely, because I was such a people pleaser, and I had to let go of a lot of that stuff because I couldn't. So I have to say that the pain is really excruciating of losing a child. Like it really is, but you can turn it around. And so what happened to me was I feel like God is the place that you can go to. And you can go to this place by just becoming like completely I went there by becoming completely humble and just I was nothing. I was nothing after Brian died. I was nothing, but I was everything. And I know you'll understand that, Becky,
I
because
do.
I was
I know.
no, yeah, like who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. And yet I feel this connection. If I all I had to do was breathe the sun into my heart and I would feel this light expanding, and that's God. It's this feeling of this light, it's love, it's pure unconditional love, and it's this love that you have for your child. It's because when your child is on earth, right? Sometimes you have these expectations of them, you know, you expect them to do well in school, you expect them to do, you have these maybe sometimes you don't even notice you have them. But then, I mean, when they become one with you, there's none of that anymore. There's just the love that you share for who they are at an authentic, pure level. I know you get what I'm saying.
Oh, I do. And I think I know there are people that listen to this podcast that have children that have died, and they know what you're talking about, especially the nothingness, the being brought down to nothing. Other people that haven't experienced that, they have their own level of suffering, whether it's through divorce or the loss of a parent or a spouse, or I mean, I had a lot of suffering before this that was just stuff from my past. It could be anything. Whatever takes me down to nothing, which is this was the ultimate There was no room for anything else, the noise of the world, the anything. Like I said, I couldn't work. All I could do was sit and be with me and feel the totality of being a human, which meant at the time, I remember messaging you guys and being like, how do you have pictures in your house of your children? Because I couldn't even look at a picture of Kira because I thought my heart would freaking explode. I literally was like, how do you live through this? Like, it felt like I could die. Like, I did not understand how, like, really, just how do you physically live through something like this? Like, my heart is still beating. Like, how? Because grief is so physical, but
Yeah.
simultaneously, I was being expanded. And it is that really like dissolution of the ego, dissolution of the separation between one Kira and I, but it was not just Kira and I, it was Kira and I, and then it became Kira and I and these other children. Like, I personally, my gifts of connection, I do feel connected to everything, animals, everything, the leaves on a tree. It's like the veins, everything just had more life to it.
Because, and you said the leaf. So, okay, when I said I isolated myself, I didn't like sit in a room all by myself. So what I did was, because I never used to do this, my life was always hectic. I began walking on a path every single day in nature, just surrounding myself. Of course, like winter, I couldn't do it, but I did it in summer. And I started noticing the beauty of everything. Because once my mind, because you wake up, the thoughts are constantly surrounding, like, my child's not there, my child's not there, my child. So then you have to like stop those thoughts, right? So I would like go on this path and I would begin to like, okay, the thoughts are there, the thoughts are there. I'd walk. And sometimes it would take me an hour to stop those thoughts. And then I would connect. It's like Brian would come through and I would begin to connect and I would look at the leaves and I'd be like, oh my God, they are so beautiful. And I never noticed how beautiful these are. I was like getting lost in nature. I was connecting to nature. I mean, the bees were just flying to me. Everything was flying to me. I mean, this connection. And then the sun. I mean, sun is so healing. I know what you're saying because I
Yeah.
felt it all. I felt it all.
And I think that it's that level of awareness that we are bringing to our experience. And for people that are listening, it's like in everything that you do, it's just, especially, it can be through suffering, but it really can be through every experience, is bringing this awareness. And it is a frequency, it's a higher consciousness. I don't like to say higher or lower, but for me it's a more expanded consciousness of just experiencing everything with so much more depth, which eventually, actually immediately, leads to all of these connections, this deep feeling of like, I felt like I was being blasted with feel good energy, which made no sense to me, because wait, I'm okay, or I feel my body feels good and I feel good, but I shouldn't. And it was confusing because they were happening simultaneously. And I do know that we are being helped. We are getting fed energy. They are feeding us energy and we are feeding it back, because we are here, the feet on the ground, to help spread the message that, only love is real. That these massive experiences of connection to everything and everyone, merge consciousness. You and I often share synchronicities. I mean, this morning you had like 7 of them ahead of this podcast. That it's not just that I hear things from Brian, I will see signs for him, and then then I'll connect with you and you're having something. So a lot of times I do that a lot with the children, will send me stuff. I know he wasn't a child when he died, but he's your child. But children on the other side are connecting with me and connecting me to their parents, and I do believe that that's because we are embodying. Some of us are embodying this frequency. I was going to say this new frequency, which reminds me. So before the podcast, I always ask anybody if there's anything that they don't want to talk about. And I want to talk about it on the podcast. What do you not want to talk about? We're going to talk about it. No, the reason I'm going to bring it up is because we started talking before and I thought, you know what, this is actually a good conversation. New Earth is something that you didn't want to talk about. And then we just started saying, so tell me, because I think it's good, and I think it's good to have the conversation. So you said you didn't want to talk about New Earth. So first of all, for anybody that's listening, briefly tell us what New Earth is, and then tell me why you didn't want to talk about it.
Well, I didn't want to talk about the entire 3D and 5D and people in 5D are going to New Earth. And I just didn't want to talk about because I felt there's like separation there and fear that comes with it. Like I had this fear last year because I was shedding a lot of stuff last year. Like, oh my goodness. And I was in like my head a lot. And I was like, oh my God, I'm de-earth, new earth. I was like in this like panic mode of I'm not gonna make it to 5D.
But really quick before you go on to, for anybody that's listening, what does that mean? The new Earth, the 5D, the 3D? Explain that really quickly first.
So I had a misconception. I thought it was something that we were going to move on to, but we are already living it. We're
Mhm.
already living the 5D. But I don't know. I was just like I was thinking I was lost, by the way, because I was like living in a lot of shedding and guilt patterns and things like that. And I was like, I'm living in the lower frequency. I started getting like I'm living in lower frequency. I'm living in 3D. I'm gonna miss the 5D, but not realizing that I'm already there. I'm already in 5D, living in a 3D world. So I don't know. I just felt like there was separation there, and I didn't want to cause fear to people because what it really is just living in gratitude and love. Living in gratitude and love, and you'll find your peace. You'll find your 5D when you're ready to.
So I love this. So this is why I wanted to talk about it. So New Earth can sometimes be talked about. There's going to be a split. Some people are going to go into the New Earth. Some people are going to stay here. Which side are you going to be on?
Yeah.
There's also in the Bible they talk about the rapture. I think that's it, right?
Mhm.
Some people are going, some people are not. There's multiple like ways that this is talked about, which I am always reminding everybody stay present. And anytime we're looking out into the future, either to feel better, like, oh, there's going to be a flash of light and then we will all just transcend. Well, okay, maybe, but I'm going to stay present and try to feel as whatever, the goodness that I could feel in this moment. And I think when we're projecting out into the future, we're not being here presently and everything is happening now. And two, like you said, it's already happening. And for me, what that looked like is I was experiencing after Kira died a feel good always energy, this massive consciousness expansion. This used to be able to think of something and it would appear, but it was just, there really aren't words for the amount of merge consciousness, knowing things ahead of time. All of that was happening so fast. My entire material reality was question. Like I just couldn't even believe it. And I was walking around just in pretty much pure bliss. I still live pretty happily. Well, that is that separation. My inside experience, it's not like I'm not here with other people when I'm walking through Trader Joe's. It's just that my frequency kind of brings in all the happy people. And we're all still here. No one went anywhere else. It's an internal thing. So we're all kind of in charge of our own experience, and collectively we're doing it together. You and I here on the podcast, us sharing our experience. And yes, I could see how if you're someone that's in fear, you're going to think that if I might do this wrong,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to get, everyone's going to leave and I'm going to be stuck here alone. Well, that's a fear. We're never alone. We're never alone. It's a conscious experience. I mean, you can't separate us. And so I'm never here, hopefully on this podcast, trying to perpetuate fear at all. That is not, I know it's not helpful. And I am, I don't claim to have all the answers at all about what New Earth is or higher consciousness. But what I do know is my own experience, which is only love is real. And in this moment, we could be in a three-dimensional world experiencing our lives in these bodies in a different way, which you could call a spiritual awakening. You could call it New Earth. You could call it the Great Awakening. That's what Kira calls it. And for me, it doesn't feel like something that happened 20 years ago. I've been awakening my whole life, but this was massive. And it
Mhm.
seems to be happening exponentially. And what the messages I'm getting is that we are all waking up. And there's some of us who are forerunners that are waking up first. And that's why we're seeing it being talked about on a level that we haven't before. Not here in the Western world, anyways. So we're watching it happen, even though maybe it seems like things are burning down.
No, I have noticed that it's really becoming normalized. Like many people are talking about this. Like I said, I've been having these kind of experiences my whole life, but I felt so alone back then. And actually, I did meet people were entering my life that had these experiences, but I still had this fear about it. But now I'm like, "Oh, okay, actually helping parents heal is one of the groups that helped me because we had all these people that were like normalizing this. And, there's mediums that are on there. And it's like that really helped me. And as well, Emily, of course, and yourself. So it's like I met all these people that I knew I wasn't alone anymore and that this was okay. It was okay that I had these experiences, that I would hear things ahead of time and they would happen. And I knew that that was okay. I wasn't the only one having these experiences. There was nothing to fear. For example, something I did to feel good after Brian passed was I helped this girl. Like I was like, I need to help someone. I need to do something good for someone. That's going to make me feel good. I met this girl. So I right away, as I was thinking that, I opened up my cell phone and it was this girl who her niece got into a car accident and her car was stuck, I mean, in a different province here, about 45 minutes out of where we live. And I found it right away. It kind of caught my attention because her niece was driving from Brampton to Montreal. So prior to us coming here, we lived in Brampton. And I always felt guilty for moving back to Montreal from Brampton. And before Brian died, I asked him, do you miss living in Brampton? Because I've taken him away from his friends. And I remember him saying, oh, Brampton is a horrible place to live now. It's just like, okay, So, but this girl was coming from Brampton and she got into a car accident. So I'm like, I feel like I need to go help her. My husband and I drive to go help her, and she's driving the exact same car that I'm driving, a white Caliber. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I look in her car, and her entire car was demolished. Her car had flipped over 3 times, but where she was sitting was perfectly intact. Like everything in the driver's side, her window, everything was intact. Nothing had happened to it. I was like, oh, that's strange. And she's walking around like she's completely fine. And she was around Brian's age. I get to meet her. Now I'm going to her house because she's doing my lashes. And this is a time where like I think it's year 2, I'm doing a lot of self-care and I'm starting to take care of myself again, like and so she's doing my lashes and she tells me a story. She tells me that she's like, does your son have orange hair or something orange? Does he wear something orange? I'm like, yeah, my son always wore an orange hat. I'm like, he always wears an orange hat. She goes, he was in the car with me. He put his arms around me when the car flipped over. I showed her a picture, she's like it was him. So
Oh,
I know. I just got so many chills too. So that's how her side of the car, nothing happened to her. So we always meet the people we're meant to meet.
and the greatest thing about that is the nudge that you got. You're sitting there and you think, I want to help someone. And
Yeah.
then you open it and you follow the signs. And I love that. And I just suggest to everybody, follow the signs, even if it feels, like be good to people. Don't follow the signs where you're out treating people like crap. That's not what I'm saying. But if you just follow the nudges, especially when it doesn't feel like your idea, then you kind of get led on a path. And that's a miraculous story. Of course, he was there. The mirrored, the twin cars. It's like there's all these confirmations to show you
So
just like
many.
what is happening and how much help we're receiving, and that you got to help
Yeah.
her and form a relationship with her.
The fact that she was comfortable enough to tell me such a thing, I thought was very brave of her, and it was meant for her to share that. So I just wanted.
Yeah. If I give any advice at the end of this podcast, I would say to people to share the thing. Even if you think you might sound crazy, share it. Because the more that we share the truth of our experience, our dreams, our visions, being out and seeing something that maybe nobody else is seeing, the more we share it, the more other people start to see it too. And that we do this work together because it is real. It is real. And it doesn't matter if other people believe us. We will find the people that do, and this frequency will spread until it is done. And I believe inside of me, it feels in this moment done enough that I know how real it is.
or nothing.
Yeah, you actually experience connection very similar to me. A lot of people experience different things. Some people it's through dreams, and some people it's through a lot of signs and synchronicities, a deep knowing and knowing things ahead of time, which is how you experience it. And for me, we can't really explain our experience, but we can share it so that when other people start having these experiences, and they will, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you will, that doubt or that fear that comes in that it's not okay to be communicating with spirits, the enemy is coming. If you believe that, that is fine. All I say is question any belief system that causes you pain or fear.
Mm-hmm.
And because only love is real. It should feel pretty good. It doesn't mean that we can't cry and be sad about what's happening. But anything, any belief system, I still question my belief system. I'm just not attached. And it could shift and change. I like to say that the more I know, the less I know. And I also know a lot. I know it because we are all knowing. It's just that the ego or the brain really distorts or tunes out a lot of what we already know, and we're being upgraded. So more coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you say, only love is real. And I've had to tell myself that while I was doing my shedding last year. I had to remind myself many times that only love is real. Only love is real. Because there were times where I was in so much guilt and I was like, no, only love is real. Only love is real. And I had to keep reminding myself of that. And it is why I'm here today. And actually, I don't know if you wanted me to share at all the story of my falling.
I did. I was literally just thinking, okay, next question is going to be tell your story. We're just merging our consciousness. Yes, that's literally what I was going to ask next. So you're describing this last year. So that's the thing too, is that this is a spiral. This is not like we wake up and now everything's just perfect. We are continuing on this journey. And so in the last year, you had your fall, but you had some other stuff too. So if you want to share that experience.
So I was doing a lot of self-healing. I was feeling a lot of my emotions, but at the same time, I was getting a little lost in my head. And I went on this car ride and I told my husband, let's go by the water. I just was called to go by the water. And as I was standing on a rock, Cass, my son, he has autism, he's a tiptoe walker. He comes up on the rock with me and he puts his arms around me and all of a sudden, like the rock is like 4 feet high and he drags me forward as he falls back. And I land, part of my body lands on him, but part of my body hit my head on this rock. And I remember going to the hospital, but here's the thing, like, okay, so I'm gonna get like really like a little woo-hoo. But last year was a year 9, right? So a lot of people were shedding all this stuff, and we're now moving into a year 1. Well, it was in numerology also my year 9, and I'm in a year 1 now. So I was shedding all this stuff, but I was in my head. And then when I fell, I ended up going to the hospital. They did a scan on my head and they told me that I had something called a meningioma. Now, here's the thing. I knew I didn't have it. Like I knew that I was being shown that I was in my head too much and I needed to get out. So the doctor comes in and he says, okay, well, your scan is normal. However, we found this meningioma. And I'm saying, well, that's a little weird. I don't remember that being part of the plan, you know?
No one told me. I didn't see this ahead of time.
Yeah. And so then I'm on TikTok and I'm in my head, I'm like, but why do I feel like I don't have this? Like, I feel like this is wrong, you know? So then they lost my papers. I had to keep going back to the hospital to try to retrieve my papers because I wanted to know for a fact that this was not real. And so turns out I do not have a meningioma. However, I knew that that was representing the fact that I was like this tumor in my head. I was always in my head and I was forgetting about my connection. I was forgetting to be in the present moment. And I needed proof of that because I was getting lost in the past constantly. I have to heal my generational trauma, what next? So it was just showing me that I was like living. So I do not have that. However, what they discovered was that a bone at the top of my head calcified, which I thought also was quite funny because I was no longer connecting I wasn't connecting to to the divine, to the present moment anymore. It was close. I was in my head. So that is my story. But since then, I'm being led once again to come into the present moment, and I've been focusing on just being here. I no longer am living in the past in this generational trauma. Like I feel like I needed to heal all that needed to be healed. However, I will say that we always need to heal stuff every single day, like every day. Just be in the present moment and forgiveness. That was one of the biggest things that I learned last year was to forgive myself and forgive all those around me. Because when you forgive, internally, you find your peace and connection, and you need that peace within yourself.
I love that. There's so many things like that can help us have this freedom to remember the truth, which is only love is real. And forgiveness is such a huge part, staying out of resentment. You talked about the generational trauma, that we heal it and then it can feel healed. We can be clear. We can be clear channels, and maybe something else pops up and we continue to stay present in this moment. The one thing I love about your story that you shared, and as I watched you walk through last year, first of all, you talked about how it was a year 9, and that's, collectively, 2025 was year 9, and we're in 2026, which is year 1, and then each person has their own year, and yours was also a 9, and then now you're moving into a year 1, and mine was also a 9 and moving into year 1 also, and that there's all these correlations with that. And I love that you knew that you were able to take that experience, and wow, what a different experience that you had, deeply knowing, being able to trust that voice that was like, I don't have this tumor, essentially, right? Which can fill you with so much fear. And it doesn't mean that other people in these same situations won't end up having the cancer or
Mm-hmm.
the tumor, but you knew that it wasn't, and you were able to really, I think, about mirrored experiences. So your internal experience of closing off your crown chakra, your connection, being in your head, you literally calcified the bone, which is closing off the crown chakra, right? That it can kind of, I'm always curious, like, what is this? Like physical stuff. What is this? It's a fine line between being here, like I like to say, in the 3-dimensional world, where I have a friend that has cancer, and it's reoccurring, and I love her. If she's listening, she knows who she is, and that she's fully equipped to walk through this. And I'm super careful about being like, to anybody, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, because I'm just not putting any fear into any of it, and that I know that it's all really just this experience here and energy. And I don't, I surrender to what's supposed to happen. But it is nice when I am with people like yourself that can look at these experiences of like, what is this trying to show me, with surrender to what that outcome is. And it showed you so much, right?
Oh, it did. It did.
And now
And
you're helping others. Now you're helping others.
yeah. So, yeah. And it's funny because I remember at one point I needed to cry because that's another thing. I was so much in my head that I wasn't feeling anymore. I wasn't crying. So I remember walking to the hospital. I'm like, because they had lost my papers, they couldn't track anything. And then I'm like, okay, well, I didn't imagine this. I know this is real. The doctor said this. So I'm walking to the hospital and I sat on on a bench by the hospital and I just began to cry. I just began to cry. And I knew that at that point I was still holding on to some guilt from thing maybe I wasn't there for Brian, going back to the hospital that he, was going to when he didn't feel good and they kept telling him there was nothing wrong with him. So I was like, I feel like I'm reliving things that you were reliving. And I was crying. And then just as I did that, ladybug landed on me.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, hey, Bri. And then I got a nudge to look down at my feet and there was a heart rock. And I was like, okay, I'm getting my papers. And I walked into the hospital and I went into archives. Sure enough, they got my papers. And that's when I brought it into the neurologist and I wanted my proof that I did not have this thing. And I got my proof. That's when they called me and everything aligned. When I let go and I felt the emotions and I surrendered. Everything that needed to happen happened.
I love that. So it's the feel, we have to feel. We don't get to
Mm-hmm.
skip that part, unfortunately. That's what Kira always says, feel good always, which means we can feel good, but we have to feel, and that we surrender the outcome. We stop grasping and we surrender. And that I love that you're being helped. And anybody that's received signs and synchronicities, it's a feeling of seeing the ladybug and then seeing the heart, and then just that deep knowing of like, this is going to be exactly as I know it will be, and it'll work out. And we have so much help. I'm so grateful for that we find each other, that you and I found each other, that Kira and Brian Riley, that they are just leading us in this conversation. And for anybody that's listening that has experienced tremendous suffering like this, that that you will be okay. I promise. I'd love to offer that hope, not because time has gone by. When people say grief never ends, I hated that. I was like, what? Because in the moment I was like
Mm-hmm.
dying. So are you telling me I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
and just like anything, it evolves and it's different. And I actually feel like I have more peace than I've ever had in my life. And I know you do too. So, and it's not because I just got over it, or, I got used to it. It's because my connection expanded, and I have this angel, and many angels, actually, infinite angels helping me. So as we wrap this up, I would love for you to share two things. One is, and you've shared a lot already, if you want to share, just how you find this peace. I know that have done Reiki, you're Reiki trained, but
Yeah.
anything else, or you could talk about that you do to help yourself find peace besides what you've already shared. And then the last thing is, how do you feel good always? Or what does it mean to you?
So, I mean, they're one and the same, I think, is just I always come back like you have to look at the bright side. And that's weird because at first, like you lose a child, you're like, where there's no bright side. But you have to kind of like change your way of thinking. You really have to change your way of thinking. You have to start looking at things you are actually still grateful for. I'm grateful for having the people that I have in my life, but I'm also grateful for myself. And you have to have that love within yourself. And once you find that love within yourself, you'll find that love again for your child because they did not go anywhere. They're right there. They're right here. Sometimes we forget, of course, it's normal. We're human. Sometimes we're going to feel distant because we are human, but they're always there. They never leave your side. And to trust in that and to find peace, and we're all going to go there one day. So enjoy your life here while you can, and know that actually they want us to enjoy our life while we're here. They don't want us to always be sad, but when we are sad, they're okay with it. They know we're human, so they're okay with that.
And then, yes, to all of that, I was channeling Kira, which, I mean, I hear her always, but I was using the pendulum this morning, and it's consistent message. Feel good always, find joy. And it's a blip, this little experience we're having here, which seems strange to say because it feels like a long time, and that we're all going to
Mhm.
die,
Yeah.
and which brought me
Yeah.
great joy for a while.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not, because you could feel like it's, whatever you're experiencing, you could feel like I'm the only one. Everyone out there is having an amazing life and I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And it's like, everything is impermanent. Everyone's going to lose everything and everyone. And it helps me stay present in this moment, and that we're all impermanent, and it helps expand me into this life. Do you want to share? Yeah, you kind of, that's how you feel good always, right? If there's anything
Yeah.
else you want to share about that, or what it means to you.
Feel good always for me is really that. It's just living your life with gratitude. If you live your life with gratitude, then you feel good. And taking time for yourself is so important too. It's not selfish. And I remember I used to think like, oh, if I went out for an hour by myself, it's selfish. No, it's not. You have to take that time for yourself always. And yeah,
Yeah.
be grateful.
And I'm so grateful for all of the people, including you, that have found me so that we could all do this work together. It's like just so amazing. So thank you, Nadia. Thank you so much for coming on today. And, thanks to Riley and to Kira and to Cameron and all of the beings, the angels on the other side that are helping us do this work. And thank you to everybody that listened today. So tune in next time.